Hi, Krish. How are you?
I'm from away.
Good to see you again here. This is our second interview that is going to be addressed to men. And the theme this time is going to go a little deeper, I think, although last time was also very deep and very interesting for men. But this time we're going to go into how to create a rich and fulfilling life at the same time as developing the capacity to navigate the challenges that men face in life these days. So a very interesting theme because who doesn't want to live a rich and fulfilling life? And you're doing a lot of work with men, and we also been doing some work with men together. I'm planning to do some more. So yeah. And I would like to introduce you first for the people who does not know you, although I think people know you better than me. But maybe there will be some men in my community that don't know you. So you together with Amana are the founder of the Institute of Learning Love, the Learning Love Institute. And you do a lot of seminars and trainings, and you teach other people who also do this work on really how to learn to love themselves, for people to learn to love themselves, but also to allow love in their lives, to receive love, to create intimate relationships, to create more love in general and more fulfilling lives. And you also the author, together with Amana, of 8 books, I think.
And one more coming.
One more coming. Okay. I'm curious about that. I wonder whether you could.
More for therapists, for counselors, it basically describes our method.
Okay, I will be the first one buying the book. And would you like to say something more about your work, what you do?
Yeah, I think that basically what we're really interested in is teaching people how to love themselves, other people. It's not easy to be in relationship. And we also think that relationship is an amazing way to learn about yourself in addition to having a companion in life. But it's not easy because we come with a lot of expectations, with a lot of wounds. So I think that people have to know a bit how to do it, you know. A lot of
Mm,
people confuse what we call an energy experience with actually intimacy. So we feel it's a kind of different experience, you know. An energy experience is wonderful, but it's not the same as deep intimacy. That
mm,
takes a whole different playbook, a whole
mm,
different approach, you know. And that takes a commitment to self-work, you know, commitment to understanding about what you bring to the table, you know.
mm,
So that's a lot what we work with, you know. Also, we work a lot with meditation. We work, you know, I would say that, you know, there's three aspects. One is working with the wounds, and the other is developing deeper um, space inside to
mm,
deal with difficulties that come up without
mm,
having to fix the outside or to react. And the third aspect is somehow connecting with the divine, realizing that our life is not just a simple ego experience. So we want people to have that sense of connection that's
mm,
much bigger than just our
mm,
individual,
mm,
you know, our individual life, our individual ego, which is really, you know, it's very limiting to think of our life in that, you know, and also it's a sense of meaning, because if we don't have a sense of deeper connection to the divine, it's hard to lose meaning, you know. So a lot of guys struggle with depression, and I can talk more about how we deal with depression, but I think one of the sources of depression is a lack of connection to the greater whole. You know,
Mm,
you could call it anything, God or source or essence or yeah.
mm.
So those three things I think are important. And yeah.
And I think the connection, as you call it, to the divine or whatever, yeah, is important not only for that, what you mentioned for meaning is important for everything, for how we deal with life, yeah, in general, with all the things that you said, with the wounds, with relating, yeah, that connection is what at the end unite us with the rest of life, yeah.
And it's also easy to go down because there's a lot of unconsciousness, you
Mm.
know, and we can go back and forth between feeling inspired and then losing a sense of inspiration. So there's something to work on, you know, and we can talk more about that, how to keep inspiration alive, you know.
Right. So I would like to also give a little bit of context, Krish, to how we started really working together. A few years ago, I think 3 years ago, I started to really develop an interest in visualizing some of the challenges that men have these days, especially in the theme of my work, which is intimate relating, and really also finding a different way to be in life. Yeah. And then I started to interview men who have done their own process of transforming their lives, bringing more consciousness, more love, more intimacy. And then I invited you because for me, you are a referent on this. And I was so happy and so grateful, and I'm still that you said yes, because you didn't know me at the time. And soon after that first interview, some of the listeners asked us if we were gonna organize a men's group in Spain. And you also said yes. And that happened last year. And we had 42 men in that group. We couldn't fit any more, a single more men in that venue. And it was very beautiful, very, very beautiful. And men asked us for more. And we also enjoyed it a lot. So we also wanted more. And so we bring in this year, we're going to be organizing, and we are organizing a new men's group in Spain this year. And we will talk a little bit more about that at the end, I think. But so, and also you've been doing a lot of work with men on your own. So I wonder whether you could mention a little bit of why is it so important to do men's work versus mixed groups, yeah?
Well, I think first of all, I think it's great that men get together because there's something really I remember one of the beautiful things that happened in the men's group last year in Spain is when we put on dance music, they all went wild with each other. And I'd never seen anything like it. They were having so much fun dancing with each other. And, you know, and then the intimate sharing, you know, something special when guys open their hearts to themselves and then to each other. And they, in some ways, they feel a bit freer to share in an environment that's just guys, because guys are really have a big need and also a desire to support each other. And
Mm.
so, you know, I've been doing this one online um, group with men, many of the same guys, and they really love each other. And the way they support each other when one of them is sharing difficulties is so touching. You know, they
Mm.
have such insight, and you know, they give loving insight to each other. You know, and it's really fun and it's very humorous and so on. So. Yeah. And also, I think that men have some basic issues that they have to deal with, which are unique for guys. You
Mm.
know,
Mhm.
I work a lot with the castration wound, the feeling of feeling that they're not potent enough, that they're not significant enough. We work with that. Um, Also work a lot with, and something I also want to deal with in the seminar, that men have what I call, well, everybody has what we call in our work love hunger. So that's the hunger for love, but it's a delicate dance because we don't want to mix that with expectation. It's like, I have a hunger to connect and to be loved and to
Mhm.
love. But if it's mixed with expectation, and sometimes it also gets confused with sexuality, that men sometimes express their hunger through sex, and then the woman feels objectified,
Mm.
which
Mhm.
is always leading to trouble, so we deal with that.
Mm.
Yeah.
I remember I feel so honored to have been able to witness a little bit of the work that happened last year between the men, to be the only woman who appears sometimes in the room. And I remember I was so touched to see the men supporting each other, to really go into very deep, intimate, vulnerable stuff. And I was like, wow, this is so beautiful and so amazing that this is happening, but also like what a blessing to be able just to witness these little bits. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
very, very, very touched and very
A lot of
grateful.
them had issues with their pareja, with their partner. So we
Uh-huh.
needed you to represent their partner so that we could see what was going on. And you were perfect in reflecting the partner's
Mm-hmm.
feelings and point of view, and also on happiness, so that they could hear that, and then we could work with it.
Mm-hmm. Great. So I would like to go dive a little bit deeper into the theme that I wanted to bring for today, which is how to live a rich and fulfilling life. What does it really take to, what is essential? What are the essential ingredients for a fulfilling life?
Well, I think the first thing is, I mean, we talk about areas that we have to fulfill in order to have a rich life. And one is our creativity. In other words, I think that guys, not just guys, but let's stay with guys, need to find what is their contribution. In other words, what is it that they love to do, but can make money with, but also gives them a sense of fulfillment. And
Mm,
and I think that for a guy to develop that, which is not easy. I think, for me, it took a lot of work to develop my métier, as they
mm,
say in French. And it took a lot of work, a lot of commitment. And I really want to inspire guys to do that, because I think that it's so essential also for being in relationship. Because if a guy doesn't feel solid in his contribution, or at least working towards it. It doesn't have to be, and then when the world begins to reflect back that it's appreciated, that gives a tremendous
mm,
sense of fulfillment, a
mm,
richness in life. So I think that one aspect of a man's sense of meaning is finding his contribution, his
mm,
significance. And
mm,
that's not an ego thing either. It's more a question of, how does the flow come through me? Uh,
mm,
I'm not all that attached to that I'm doing my work. I'm more feeling like this is something that is just a gift that I'm working with and that I develop, but it's not me that even that's doing it. And that's what I want guys to understand, and it's not like it's not going to change the world, but maybe in small ways it will, when we share our love and we share our passion, you know. So that's one thing I think is really important,
mm,
for guys, really important for guys, for a sense of self,
mm. really to realize and to know that you're playing a part in this game
Right.
of life. Yeah.
Yeah, and also I think it takes work. It takes a sense of commitment, and it's easy to go down. So the other thing that we have to look at is the way our shame, the way our inner judge attacks us. Because if we're going to move towards something that is meaningful, we're going to have a lot of judge attacks. We're going to have a lot of insecurity that comes up, and we've got to deal with that. So that's another thing. Also in the workshop, I want to deal with, which is man's how to deal with your superego, how to deal with your judge, you know. And sometimes I ask people to buy a puppet that represents their inner judge and to put that puppet in front and see what that energy is saying to you and how you deal with it, because we've got to learn how to deal with it in a way where we feel it. We don't try to push it over. We feel it, but at the same time we bring a more compassionate a voice instead of that harsh voice, you'll never make it, who do you think? You know, I remember that happened to me when I started leading seminars, and, you know, that judge really went to town on me. You know, who do you think you are? You'll never be as good as the other people, and so on, you know. So I think we have to look at that.
Mm. I know that voice very well myself.
I think
Um,
everybody does, and I think it's very honest of you to admit that you know the voice, because
mm,
a lot of guys try to compensate. They try to cover it up with, you know, trying to, you know, constantly prove themselves, you know, lots of money, fast cars, you know, lots of sex, you know, but that's not going to work because it's not coming to the soul. It's not, we've got to deal with our judge and feel the way they attack feels, you know.
mm. I like the idea of the puppet. I think I'm gonna buy you one myself.
Right. Maybe the seminar will have, you know, 40 puppets, you know. But some,
Uh, yeah, so great. So one of the key ingredients is to really connect with the creativity, with the purpose, with the contribution, with what I'm bringing to this life. Yeah. What other ingredients
yeah, I
are?
think the other thing is what we call love hunger. See, I think that guys do not have an easy time admitting that they're needing of love.
Mm,
And so, you know, in fact, recently I brought another puppet in. I said, let's have
mm,
another puppet that represents your needy self.
mm,
And then I asked the guys, how do you feel about that part of you? And all of them, there was 20. All of them judged it. Every single one,
mm,
almost everyone, had a judgment about being having a part that is needy. So I said, okay, let's find a different way to relate to this part of you. This is your love hunger, you know, and some of it goes back to mama, but some of it is just wanting a companion, wanting somebody to share your life with, you know, wanting somebody to share sexuality with, whatever your sexual preference is, it doesn't matter. But that hunger is important to embrace in a
mm,
loving way. And it's the neediness is not the problem. It's only when you mix it with demands and expectations that it becomes a problem. So we work on that. I think that's a second thing that's really important to deal with, you know.
mm,
And you know, when guys admit that to themselves, and then they admit their own fears and insecurities and neediness. Usually women respond very well if they're owning it, if they're not, you know, if they're embracing it, you know,
mm.
because women usually more in touch with that part of them than guys are. You know, they're more vulnerable by nature, you know. So
Y-
this is a big piece.
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes when we talk about love, it feels like, oh, this is women's thing. But there is
Right.
a really deep longing for love and connection in all of us, right? Mm,
Yeah, and I think that actually guys have it as much as women do,
mm,
but but they've been taught, conditioned to judge it
Mm.
and to push it away, and then they cover it with, compensations. And that's a big thing when it comes to sexuality, because, when guys cover their neediness by using sex, then it doesn't go well, you know. And then they get into this thing of, I want more sex, which is okay to want more energy. There's nothing wrong with that. But they also have to bring in the part of them that needs connection, that wants that connection to the feminine. And so I dive deep into, what does that mean for a guy to connect to the feminine? What is it when you let that feminine into your being? That's a big piece. And guys are scared of that.
Mm.
They're scared of losing their power.
Mm. And I guess this also has a lot to do with the relationship that they had with the first woman of their life, yeah, with the mother, yeah.
Mama, yes.
Whatever happened there and then, yeah. Mm.
And we explored that in the first seminar, the whole basic primal connection to their mother. But also it's important to see how the woman is threatening to a guy. See,
Mm.
it's not only mother, it's also just the power of the feminine,
Mm.
and I want guys to understand that the feminine is immensely powerful, much
Mm.
more powerful in some ways than the masculine.
Mm.
Um, so, and to embrace the power of the feminine is very scary, but profoundly nourishing. Because I
Mm.
think that in a way, the connection to the divine, the easiest way for a guy to get there is with a woman. If he
Mm.
can surrender to the woman, he can. That doesn't mean losing himself, but
Mm.
it means not holding on to all his controls and all his strategies and all his wanting to be the perfect sexual athlete, or you know what I mean? It's kind of like, just let that, embrace the power of and when guys really honor their woman, if that's their sexual preference, it doesn't make any difference. But if they honor their partner, the feminine, it empowers the other person, and
Mm.
it lets them be the best they can be. So that's, instead of
Mm.
fighting, you know.
Great, great. Thank you, Krish. It's so important to what you just said about realizing and the power of the feminine, not just for men, I think for our society, because this has been so missed and pushed down
Yeah.
in general, yeah. And we are lost, women also, I think we are very lost in that we've also disconnected from our own power, trying to be like men.
Right. I think that's sort of the women's liberation movement made a mistake in women becoming too masculine.
Yeah, missing the real power of women, but it's so important. And for me, I remember last autumn, after I did a lot of work with you last summer, with you and Amana, and somehow we talk a lot about mother hunger and the feminine, and something started to really work within me, and it brought me to an understanding very deep, very energetic, and it was very unexpected. Like one day it really appeared that I had an experience of that power, that nourishing power of the feminine, and how much I was missing this in my own life, yeah. And how important is for that power to be honored and to have its own space in this society, because I think we are all running around hunger of that, with a lot of hunger for that, and running around trying to find it in the wrong way. While what we just need is to really stop and be nourished by it, because it's always there, accessible. Yeah.
I had an experience once. I was taking magic mushrooms some years ago, and I had this experience, I'll never forget it. It was that men, when they want to come close to God, there's the temple, and the temple is basically inside the temple is women. And the vision I had was that the women said, unless you learn more about your feminine, you can't come into the temple. That never, I never forgot that vision I had. And it's guided me in my life, that if I want to come to God, I need to embrace my feminine. And so, being with my partner who's very feminine, that's been a great opportunity for me to surrender. But the important piece for guys is not to lose their boundaries. See, that's another piece that guys, they also have to have a sense of staying with what's important for them and not giving away, not, as I say, don't give away the whole farm, stay with what's important for you. And sometimes you're going to have to say no to something, but that's your whole, we call that your structure system, your sense of this is important to me. And I'm going to, like, for instance, I'm a tennis player. I would never give up a tennis game if I'm on she wouldn't want me to, because that's so important. This kind of thing. We need our boundaries. We need to be able to stay with what's important for us, as
to live according to your truth, your own truth.
Yeah. And sometimes the woman can drop into their needy little girl. And then the guy has to be able to be aware of that, be empathic, but not feed it, because that's a dark road,
Okay, so Krish, we have mentioned two key ingredients is for men to connect to their creativity, to their purpose, their contribution, and also to really realize the longing for love, yeah, or the hunger for love, the need to really open to love and to the feminine, yeah. Any other ingredient that you want to mention to have a
Yeah,
rich,
I think that, and this is something I really wanted to develop more, and I do that with my online men's group, is that I want guys to develop the confidence, not just guys, but let's stay with guys, that whatever comes down the highway, whatever experiences come to us in life, we can deal with it gracefully. We don't have to freak out. We can, and sometimes things are going to come down. People we love can get sick. People can die, or we can have financial problems, or we can have health problems. There's all kinds of things that can happen. So I want us to be able to develop a space inside where, and this is also little triggers, not just big triggers. So to be able to reflect and not just react. And that's incredibly empowering to know that you can do that, so that whenever something comes that's difficult and challenging and maybe threatening, the first step is to reflect, is to go, okay, wait, let me just be with this, because any action that comes out of fear is never going to be skillful. That's inner space. You could call it meditation. You can call it whatever, but it's the ability to reflect and feel what's happening inside as a body experience. So we always, what we teach is look what your mind is saying about this, because it's usually going to come up with a lot of negative thoughts. Notice what those are, notice what those negative thoughts are. We have a little thing we call in the work, those are the cobras that come out of the basket, like in India when you play the flute. So stop playing the flute, let those cobras go back into the basket and just be with the body experience,
Mm,
and that's how to develop inner space or
mm,
ability to reflect. So I think one of the crucial things is reflect before you react. And then
mm,
and then if you take time, there might be an action or some kind of response that's needed. But wait. So that's a core ingredient, I think, to
mm,
developing male empowerment, you
mm.
know.
I love the metaphor of the covers.
The cobras.
Um, and it's so interesting because when something happens that we don't like, yeah, that is uncomfortable, the tendency is to really go so much into the mind and to tell stories and to try to solve and or to avoid. Well, we really missing what's really happening in the body and all those thoughts have in a way that addiction to thinking comes from a fear to feel something more
Right.
simple and more real that is happening in the body, yeah, to really be
Addiction.
able to ground ourselves more into feeling, yeah. Mm.
Right, exactly.
Mm.
Addiction to thinking and fixing, you know.
Yeah. Mm.
And you know, I think people have the false idea that to regulate, to calm myself, I have to fix all the things on the outside that are disturbing me. But that's actually a misunderstanding. In order for me to get calm, and I need to go inside because I'm never going to be able to fix everything that's happening outside. So, yeah.
Yeah. Mm. So how one develops the capacity to be present with things that are uncomfortable, with the challenges, with how do you work with this, Krish?
Okay, I think that there's three ways that we regulate. Two of them are not so functional, and the third one is healthier. So the first one is to try to get somebody else to regulate you, to make you
Mm,
feel better. And that's called codependency. And that's not so helpful. Now, if you're in a good way with yourself, if you're reflecting, then you can go to a partner or to a friend for support, but not if that's your first way of going, because then first of all, you're not taking responsibility for your own feelings, and the other person will feel used. So the
mm,
first is to not other regulate as
mm,
a default thing.
mhm,
Second thing, and this is so common, is that people go to substances and behavior to regulate.
mm,
This is something everybody does to some extent, but it can become really unhealthy if it. So we have to look at that because honestly, most people that I've worked with have usually some behavior or some substance that they use. Now, sometimes it's okay because it's a little, but sometimes it's a lot, like pornography. A lot of guys use porn to regulate, and that's not so healthy, you
mm,
know. Or uh, they'll use weed or alcohol. So this is another thing we have to look at. And the third way, which is the healthy way, is to give yourself space to go inside, put the cobras in the basket, and be with your body and breathe. Now, at first, this is challenging, this is difficult, but we call riding the wave. Ride
mm,
the wave. So the first part of the wave is kind of intense. It's really, oh no, I can't do this. It's too much. I need to fix it. I get angry. They get angry. We deal with the anger. Look at the anger. That's just a cover emotion. Go into the fear. and ride the wave. Just imagine you're a surfer and you're riding the wave, and the wave will come down if you breathe. So that's kind of how we teach it.
Mm,
And I really, really want to teach that in this upcoming seminar,
mm.
because it's made all the difference in my life. Not that I'm perfect at it, but
I think that is an amazing key. I was gonna call it tool for life, but I think it's just a way for being in life that is the most probably empowering of all. Yeah, I would say number one.
I
Mm,
think it's pretty basic.
mm,
When I
mm,
was, so many years living with my Indian master, that's pretty much what he taught. That was the essence of his teachings. And I think that honestly, most spiritual teachers, if they're real, they teach the same thing.
mm,
You know,
mm. Yeah. So so the theme of this interview was how to really live a richer life, a fulfilling life. Are there more challenges
yeah, I
when
think
we
so.
try to really live a richer life than when we just don't?
I think that, I mentioned earlier about depression, and I think that one of the keys, so far we've talked about having healthy relationship. We've talked about having healthy creativity, but I also think we have to have a healthy relationship to our body and our life energy. And
Mm,
I really, this has made such a difference in my life to keep the energy level up in terms of um, doing something that you're passionate about, but also gives life energy. You know,
mm,
it can be in many things, but I think it's so important for the neurotransmitters, for the endorphins, to keep those up in our body because it's simply biochemical. That if we can keep our life energy up and relate to our body in a healthy way, you know, not obsessively, but I think that's pretty important, incredibly important in
mm,
order to feel not by itself. The other two things are important too, but to have that. So I encourage guys, and it's also important for a sense of structure inside to be able to keep that energy level in the body up, you know. So that means commitment. That means, some discipline, you know. Because sometimes when we get discouraged, when we have a shame attack, we don't want to move our body. We just want to lie on the couch and watch Netflix.
mm,
So there's nothing wrong with Netflix, but move your body too. So I think
mm.
that that's the key ingredient.
Yeah, yeah. I think it requires, as you say, discipline and commitment, but I think also in a way a little bit of courage to really
Yeah.
go for it. Yeah, to be honest, to deal with and responsibility. Yeah, to deal with your life in a deeper, more full way. Yeah. Hmm.
I
Uh,
think it's always a dance between negativity and positivity. And many of us had a lot of negativity in our childhood. So we've got infected with negativity. And so it's a little bit of a vigil to not let negativity encroach into our life, so yeah, I think and also I think it's important to keep inspired, to keep growing, to keep creating new experiences where you're a little bit changing your environment and changing, just having new new experiences, you know, whether that's a seminar, whether it's traveling to Alaska or something, you know, stuff like that, you know, going on a hike in Norway or you know, just bring the new in your life, you know, don't make it
Mm,
routine, you
mm.
know. I think that's important too. It is for me, you know.
A little bit to go to open is a little bit of opening the edges of your life, yeah, not to the comfort or to the known, but to go a little bit further again and again and again, expanding. Yeah. Mm. I'm, when we're talking about the challenges of going for a rich, fulfilling life, but I feel even when we don't go for the whole thing, the challenges are there anyway. I
Oh,
don't think we can avoid them. It just it's probably worse when we don't go for it.
yeah,
uh,
I think that's true. You know,
mm,
I wanted to ask you though, um, about your passion and contribution and how I know you've been very much involved with conscious sexuality and so I want to ask you about that and what that means for you and how, you know, that's your contribution.
mm, thank you. Wow. All this started with when a friend recommended me that that would benefit from doing some tantra work. And then at the time, I was an engineer working in the corporate world in the UK, and the word of tantra, I didn't know what it was, but it sounded so weird that it was like, oh no, this sounds too weird. But somehow I received it, and I kept doing some other work, some other explorations, because there was something already in my life, that something in me that had decided that the life I was living was not worth living. I was feeling empty. I was feeling very empty. Like I was comfortable, but my heart was not involved with what I was doing. So, and then I was on the search, but I didn't know what. So I was trying things. I was trying many, many, many things. And then my friend suggested Tantra. And it took me 5 years to go into enrolling in a retreat, in a Tantra retreat. But when I did go into that first week of Tantra, it was so transformative for me, that what it did really was to bring me down from the head into the body and into the heart. And I was so used to be running everything here.
Maybe I can ask you
Yeah.
what you mean by tantra because there's so much misunderstandings about that. So, you know, and I'm always been very impressed with your particular take on it. So maybe you could say a little bit about that.
Yeah. For me, Tantra is a path of awakening, I would say. It's a path of love, because Tantra says yes to all the aspects of our humanity. Yeah, like yes as a innocent or sacred part of ourselves, and also yes as a door to discover our essence. Like every aspect of our humanity is a doorway to find out who I am. And to for me also Tantra is is our connectedness, is the uh, to
Expansiveness.
expand,
Yeah.
yeah, to expand our consciousness, to realize that we are one with everything. This is really what Tantra is for me. And Tantra is also for me the path that makes from the body a temple. Yeah, you were talking about the temple before. It's like I think many spiritual paths have rejected the body as something less, something inferior, something even dirty, like things of the body. And I think Tantra honors the body and honors the feminine in a way that some of the paths have not done. And the feminine in Tantra means is related to energy, life energy, which is also very confusing because life energy is always changing and it drives us crazy many times. Yeah. And Tantra really embraces, open, like creates. I think what Tantra allow us or has allowed me to do is to bring loving presence to all the aspects of my life. I think that's the key. If I had to summarize what Tantra is, that would be it. Bringing loving presence to all the aspects of life. Yeah.
And practically speaking, in terms of how you teach Pramamui, how does this relate to actually sexuality, of bringing the bodies together? So maybe you can say something about that.
For me, in terms of sexuality, one of the key things is to bring back the innocence to our body, to every part, to not to separate anything. Like, it seems that there are parts of our bodies like breast for woman or genitals that seem to have been separated from cut from the rest. Like this is cannot be shown, it cannot be touched, is either dirty or there is so much attention that goes into it, or either avoid or all the attention, all the focus goes into this. And for me, part of the work has been to bring back these parts to unite them with the rest of the body, to make them natural, because they've always been natural, to recover the innocence. Sometimes for me, just to really to place a hand in one part of the body and realize this is sacred and innocence in a way that never been separated from the rest. That for me is very important. Yeah. Yes.
What is, and in terms of your teaching, when two bodies come together, maybe give some sense for how you work with that, because there's so much misunderstanding about orgasm, about
Yeah.
sexual trauma, and so on.
Yeah, from the Tantra point of view, the key is to bring loving presence to everything. Yeah. So when we bring two bodies together, if we relate it to this, to having bringing two bodies together as something like or scary or too exciting, or when I put the bodies together, then there is already a program that runs and then goes into a goal, like looking for an orgasm, something to happen in, then the presence totally disappears there, because we go into automatic mode. Yeah, the same as you were saying before with emotions. Yeah, a challenge comes, something really uncomfortable comes, and then we go into automatic. Yeah, into reaction. Yeah, so I think the same happens very often when we get two bodies together that attract each other. Then we go into automatic program. Then there's no consciousness, no presence, no awareness. There's not even, we don't even feel our bodies anymore. It's something else running from either conditioning, like the fantasies that we have about what needs to happen here, the ideas. And we have so many fantasies. Women tend to have more what I call romantic fantasies, like Hollywood movies.
Right.
And then men tend to have more like porno fantasies, but both are fantasies, both are ideas. Yeah. And we also have energetic, very often related to those fantasies, we developed programs, how we relate to that when we comes to the situation that we find ourselves with another body that we attracted to, and then the whole program comes. I remember I have a very good anecdote for this. I remember that when I was starting to do tantra work, and I in the workshops I was experiencing amazing, fulfilling, nourishing connections with other men. And I was like, wow, this is like heaven on earth. I never experienced anything like this in my intimate connections. It was really expansive, nourishing, very fulfilling, complete by itself. And then I remember with one man that have had some of these experiences in the workshops with some of the tantra practices. With one of them, I went to bed after a few experiences like this. And we both went to bed and went into automatic, very, very automatic. And when we both finished, we were like, what?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
What was this?
What was
Like,
that?
we
Yeah.
both felt empty, like, And we realized we didn't know how to do better. That, okay, we've learned to do this in the workshops, but when we went into the context of intimacy in bed with someone from the opposite sex, there was a habit, a program, a need to demonstrate something that really took over, really totally took over. So for me, one of the things that I really teach that is very important is to really decondition our bodies and our minds from all these ideas, fantasies, but also from all these energetic habits that really go for. And I do that through a very, very simple practice, very beautiful, simple practice that really allow us to experience what it is to be next to another body without going for anything, without having to go for a goal, without having to demonstrate anything, without having to protect anything, and just to be present and breathing together. And
I'm
that is
wondering
very beautiful. Mm.
in the men's group, if you could guide the guys in a meditation or something to work exactly with that, because I think guys, as you said, are still pornographically oriented,
Mm.
and maybe that's extreme, but I do think that guys are very addicted to the program, exactly what you're talking about.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah, I think sexuality is very important for all of us. I think for men has even a few degrees more than for women, in the sense that there is a sense of identity. Like if I'm not good sexually, I don't perform well, it's like my manhood is a deal, is being questioned, yeah, in a way that I think is not so much for women. It is also very important for women. It
but the
is,
other,
but yeah,
yeah, I think that's really important.
yeah. Mm.
The other question I want to ask you is, because this I deal with a lot with guys, how do guys deal with their woman has sexual trauma and doesn't want to go into the program? And then the guy feels castrated because he feels that the woman is shutting them down. So this is a big issue, and I think we need to deal with that in the workshop.
Mm. I think men need to really understand that women have really gone through a lot in our sexuality. I mean, we are together in this. We are together, men and women. Like, uh, but I think women have really uh, left their own ground more than men. Like we allowed ourselves to be taken in to allow a sexuality that was not good for us. A lot maybe from our wound of trying to please, trying to be liked. And but then at some point, obviously, yeah, and we also received a lot of abuses, and we allow those, yeah, in a way. So I think men need to understand that lots of women, before or later, the body is either closed or they just don't want to relate anymore.
Or they please.
Yeah. But that's not gonna ever be fulfilling. That's never,
No.
not just for the woman, but also for the man. I think when a man realizes and understands the power of a woman when she's really connected to her sexuality, and how fulfilling that could be for a man being with a woman who is really connected to her sexuality in a feminine way, how fulfilling that could be for a man to be in that. I think that there is that other possibility. I think they will totally go with the woman. I
Right,
remember.
and that's the important point, because I think that for a guy to be able to be with a woman who's really in her sexuality in a real feminine way, not in a masculine way, but that is very scary for a guy. He needs to have some sense of structure inside. That's why I was saying earlier that a guy has to have a somewhat of a sense of himself to let a woman be in her power that way, you know.
Yeah. And something really important is also for men to relate to their body, to have their own experience of their body, the genitals, yeah, that they don't abuse themselves, because there is a lot of self-abuse and go for gold, masturbating, and the penis is very often being very used. Used to perform, used, like there's a lot of demand, a lot of demand and judgment of their own genital, and there's not a natural loving relationship with their own body. So that also is important, I think, to start to relate to, especially to their own sex, in a loving way, without demands of, like, now you have to have an erection. Yeah, you're supposed to be doing this now. Something a little bit more
A lot of
natural.
pressure, not a lot of
There's
pressure.
pressure, yeah.
Yeah.
And that, so then there's a need also to do a work alone, I think. That's very important, to be more loving towards their own body and sex. And that will also help when they approach a woman that is also connected to her sexuality in a more natural, innocent way. And once we really take away the programs and the conditioning, then we can start to listen to the body, be more present. Also, when we're able to really be with our emotions, obviously, because there's lots of things that move emotionally also when we are with someone of the
A lot of
opposite sex. Yeah.
fear, and men are
Mhm.
very scared of intimacy. And one of the things that I discovered in myself and also with guys is that when they stop compensating, they have to be patient for the erection to come from a different place. We
Mm.
call it a heart on instead of a hard on, and in English,
Mm.
you know, but that requires patience. That requires feeling the flow of energy with the partner and letting the erection happen from a different place. And a lot of guys don't have the need to learn that patience, and trust that it's going to happen.
Yeah. And I think it's very important in that sense also to have that experience by themselves, to feel their own penis and without demand. Because if that we cannot do it alone, then with the other person, then it's just going to be impossible. So that, I think, is very important. And I have an experience with a partner with whom we did a lot of work, and we transform our sexuality together. And what he said to me is like, wow, I didn't know this was possible. I didn't know this was possible. Now I know it's possible. Then I would have let go of all that a long time ago, but
Right,
I didn't
right.
know there was another possibility. And this is the thing. We have not been educated in anything different to what we see from Hollywood or porno, or I don't know whether there is other sources of education that are a little bit healthy. I think that's where, for me, Tantra plays a big role. And that's why many people come to Tantra, because they want to find a sexuality that is a little bit healthier. And obviously Tantra is much more than that, but it helps. It helps with that, because there is no many places in life where you can bring consciousness and light, real light, to our sexuality. And it's been so either repressed or either abused,
Perverted, abused.
or
Yeah,
now it's like, okay, it doesn't matter. And we use our sexuality very freely, but we also missing that is something very sacred, and it has a potential for creating love and creating life. Obviously, creating life is a little bit more clear because there are many children in the world, yeah. But life in a different way.
right, right.
Mm. So
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, let's see how we can bring this to the main group.
yeah, we can talk about it. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think also Tantra has something to bring in terms to the men in terms of life purpose. I had a very strong realization once while doing a Tantra practice. And because I was playing, not usually I was playing the role of a woman, and because of some dynamics, then I was invited to play the role of a man in that Tantra practice. And it really took me out of my comfort zone in a way I didn't expect, because I was asked to bring the energy from the heart into the sex. Well, I was used to bring the energy from the sex into the heart. I was very easy at that, rise the energy into love, expand,
Right,
and for me that was so beautiful as a woman, to really bring the energy into the heart, to expand. I was like always very comfortable, like flying there. And then that day I had to, receive the energy in the heart and bring it down. I was like, oh my God, now that the energy is already here, I don't want to go down. I just want to fly. But then the role that of the practice was to really focus that energy and bring it down into the sex, bring it down into the earth. And I was doing that for a long time. And suddenly I realized the role that men play in life, which is receive the energy of love and really bring it into the earth,
grounded. Yeah.
focusing it, materializing it, creating life in a way that is more tangible, that is material, that is here on the earth. And it was like, wow, this is the role of men in life. Not it's very easy for us to love in the air, but
Right,
to bring it down, to make it material, to focus, that's not so easy for a woman. That's totally unnatural for a woman, but for a man, it's natural.
see,
Is
interesting.
the
Oh,
and then
that's
I understood, and from that day, I started to appreciate when I see things in the world. Oh, men have done this. Men have created this. But what is really key is that and this is very connected to what you said at the beginning, that men embrace love. Because if men don't embrace love, that energy that is brought into the earth has not received the nourishment, the flavor,
yeah,
the depth of love, and then what men are bringing into the earth is the energies of love, is in service of love. And that's also what you said about men really honoring the feminine, because it's only when men has been able to receive and be nourished by that energy and know it really deeply, know it, that they can really put themselves in service because they drank it. And that requires opening the heart with all the challenges that mean. So yeah, so that's an understanding that I have from, and I remember at the time mentioning to some of the men in the room, I say, wow, I've just realized this. And this is so difficult. It was so difficult for me to do this. And they say, yeah, but for us, it's natural. And I was like,
That's
wow, wow.
natural. If they're ready to receive the energy from the woman into the heart and then bring it down. And that's where sometimes they block it, because they're scared to take in that energy. So that's something to work with guys, to work with letting themselves take in the love through the heart.
Yes,
Yeah,
but the potential is there from birth.
right.
That potential is there
Right.
from birth. Obviously, we have a lot of conditioning and lots of things that got on the way. So we talk about
Oh,
lots of things, and I think we could talk more, but we've been already probably about 1 hour, I think, Krish. So maybe we can try to close a little
okay.
bit.
Okay. Yeah, we could keep going. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, as a way of closing, maybe to just say that we've touched on a number of different things that are so essential for guys,
Mm,
embracing their neediness and finding their contribution and dealing with their inner critic, and working with their sense of empowerment. Um, yeah.
mm,
And also the part that you added, which is to let men develop a healthy sexuality, which is so important, and to get away from the program.
mm,
And guys are very addicted to the program. Let's face it, they just are, and it's a great distraction actually from spirituality.
mm.
Oh,
Until they discover that they can put sexuality and spirituality together. And I think this is also
yeah,
one of the gifts of Tantra,
right.
that they are
Which
not separate, they've never been separate. And yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. I like something that I heard you say in Krish, that you say there are three things: love, have fun, and go in.
right, right. That's true. Yeah, yeah.
And
Because it's so important to remember, you know, that life is not complicated,
mhm.
you know.
So yes, we're gonna love, have fun, and go in this
Go in, yes. Do
seminar
the-
that we organized together, and really go deep into some of this work. And it's so amazing to really see that men are getting together to do this work. It's so healing, so empowering, and so beautiful. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you
Okay,
so
so
much.
good. And thank you. Thank you again for
Uh-huh.
inviting me. And yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be doing this with you, Krish.
muy bien. Okay.
Hasta pronto.
Hasta pronto, sí.
Hasta pronto.
Sí.
Chao.
Chao.